That was the awkward waiting for the actual broadcast to start. Welcome, everyone. We are back. Yes, it's the Four Musketeers by popular demand. We're not sure who made the popular demand, but we're going to find them and we're going to track them down.
Yeah, that was me.
And let me introduce the awesome and incredible Jane Atkinson from SpeakerLauncher.com.
Hello.
Steve Lowell, CSP from SteveLowell.com. And wait for it, Lois Creamer of BookMoreBusiness.com fame. And I'm, of course, David Newman, your humble host. We are doing COVID Schmovid. Which is, it's funny because we're preparing our second go-round here, and everyone's doing a webinar, and everyone's still sending those emails and COVID-19, and we understand, and I know it's hard, and blah, 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 blah. And we do know it's hard, and we do know it's a global tragedy, and we do know that there's a very serious personal health, financial impact on all of us. But we're going to focus on the positive, and we're going to give you some ideas, strategies, tools, tips to help you turn around your mindset, turn around your skill set, turn around some strategies that you're using. And we have a little bit of an agenda, and then we absolutely want to hear from you and your questions and what you're going through and how the four of us can help you with some specifics. But I want to start off just kind of going around to our esteemed group here. Question number one is just, what are you telling your clients? What's the best advice personally that you're giving to folks during this time of turbulence and sadness and uncertainty? Who'd like to jump in?
Well, of course, I'll
go with Jane.
Well, I've been doing a lot of podcasts. All this month has been about this exact topic, and I've had some really amazing people on the show. Sarah Ross talked about making peace with your worst case scenario, just to really kind of understand that when you go all the way down the road, what would be the worst thing that could possibly happen? For me, it's always like living under a bridge or something like that. And that's really not probably going to happen for the majority of us. But I really do want to say that when your phone hasn't rung for a week, many of us, myself included, can find ourselves getting shook. Our mojo might start to waver just a little bit. And something that I think we all need to remember, and this is what I tell my clients, is that the value that you bring to the table has not changed. And so I think that when you go back in and do a value audit and you reassess what it is that you bring to the table. And some of you are out there kind of pivoting. You're shifting your value slightly to accommodate what's going on. I think that will give you the confidence to keep moving forward. And I think that's what we need right now. We need hope and we need confidence. On the days that I don't watch the news, I come to the table feeling so solid. And then some days it just drags me down and down and down. Today I haven't watched the news, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Tremendous. Lois, how about you? Best personal advice?
I watched the news. You didn't miss anything.
Okay.
The word I've been using is one that I just heard Jane say, and that shift. This has caused not only a shift in our lives, but a shift in our business. And I think it's going to I think I always try and look for the positive in situations like this. And I do think there are many positives in this. One of the things that I have been preaching to people is that make sure you're going to add video presentations, virtual presentations to your offerings. And remember that the value of your intellectual property in the marketplace hopefully is the same regardless of the delivery system you're going to use to give it. This is something that a lot of people, I know that there's been a lot of pushing and shoving on some Facebook pages about this. But, my sense is that we've added just another dimension to our businesses with this. I think this is going to be something that is a permanent add to our businesses, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I do think I am trying to reinforce to people that to think about the value of your intellectual property, not the value of the delivery system.
Really great. Oh my goodness. Amen times 10. Steve, what do you think? Best personal advice?
Well, first I want to say hello to my friend Terry Brock. I see he's here. I met Terry last year in the UK and had some really good times hanging out with him. Hi, Terry. Glad you're with us. So I'll tell you what has been happening with me, and it's kind of germinated in a bit of advice, and that is I've had to struggle with detaching from my identity a little bit during this time. Because for 30 something years, 35 years, I've been, a speaker trainer, and that's what I've done. And that's the brand and all of that. And what I'm finding now is that with this whole COVID thing, I've got to reach out to, an additional audience and several additional audiences and look for ways to make my content relevant to people who are in other industries. And it's happening, and we are doing that in a whole bunch of different ways. But the toughest thing for me has been to detach from my identity. Mm-hmm. And so if I were to share some advice at this point, I think it would be, explore how attached to you are to your identity, and consider giving yourself a little bit of freedom to detach from the identity and explore maybe some not necessarily new identities, although that might happen, but adding to your identity rather than sticking to what's always worked. And I'm only offering that because that's what I've been struggling with. And so there it is.
Yeah, boy, so much smart advice there. So many smart things. The only thing that I might add, and it's a little bit of icing on all this fantastic cake that we've already shared, this whole concept of pivot and flex. So I think that this is something where if your marketing wasn't dialed in, if your value prop wasn't dialed in, if your actual value wasn't really dialed in before this, you are going to feel it first, and you are going to feel it hard, because you are now completely left out in the cold. Early on in my career, I was a total hot mess, of course, and the mantra was, even a blind squirrel occasionally finds a nut. In this market, there ain't no blind squirrels finding any nuts. So I totally agree with Steve and Jane and Lois. This is a fantastic opportunity to do a clean slate exercise. Say, if I were inventing my expertise-based business, and we can talk about whether even the word speaker is a good label, and I think I know how all of you think, because I think we're on the same track with this, by the way. But even if the word speaker as an identity is a good label, you want to re-look at everything. And what are all the different distribution methods for your expertise? And I would say getting your marketing, your sales, and your value prop dialed in, that's a now more than ever thing, regardless of the distribution method of your expertise, as we already said. Yeah. But what a great time to just do some really good introspection and figure out not so much what you want to sell, but what do your buyers want to buy?
Yeah, exactly. To tap into that identity conversation, Steve, when you rise yourself up to expert and you're all about solving a problem for people, the way that you distribute your knowledge is multiple. You really distribute your knowledge in lots and lots of different ways. So think about when you're sitting next to the plane talking to somebody and they say, well, what do you do? You could really lead with what problem you solve. And then they say, oh, how do you do that? And then you talk about the distribution channels that you actually have. Hey, David, we got a little bit of noise on the line. I'm not exactly
I think it might be Lois's iPad. So I'm just going to ask, just as an experiment, Lois, when you're not speaking, would you mind just going on mute?
Try that.
And then let's see. And then obviously when you're back, you'll be louder than the noise, so it's fine. All right, excellent. I'm sorry, Jane. Go ahead, and we'll handle the check behind the scenes.
I actually think that that's really something that everybody should be thinking about in terms of identity. Yes, we need to claim our place on the big stage, or we will need to in the future, but really thinking about what you do as a body of work versus a distribution channel anyway. I think Randy Pennington said it really wisely once is, are you the Coke or are you the Coke machine? The Coke machine is how you distribute the product, but really think of yourselves as the Coke. Something cool.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, let's move on to our second question, our second agenda item, which is obviously we're in a time of great change, great turbulence, great upside down, shaken, stirred craziness. Some things have changed, and some things have changed dramatically and forever, and some things have really not changed at all. So out of all the different things, in your opinion, that have changed, what are those things? And then what really hasn't changed? And where do we still need to do a little bit of work and thought? And we want to get Lois back on the mic. There you are, my friend.
You know, I think that one thing that has not changed, and I think that this serves as a reminder really to all of us in this industry, is that there will always be a need for meetings and for platform speakers. You know, people go to meetings for a number of reasons, and hearing a speaker is one of them. But the sense of community is very important to companies and associations who create these meetings. That's a big part of why they're doing what they're doing. So I think, fear not that we're going down a road of no return. I don't believe that. I was around in 2007 when the economy fell out. Everybody said, well, it will never be the same. Remember, it will never be the eyes falling.
It came back stronger.
Yeah. And then after 9/11, people said, well, nobody's going to want to travel and nobody's going to want to be in a big meeting together. And of course, this passed. And so think of this as a journey. It began, had a beginning. It will have an end. While we're in it, inside of it, I do think it gives us an opportunity to revisit our business. How and what can we deliver virtually? I have always done consulting virtually, and I enjoy it. I think that you need to ask yourself, what are some other things I can do virtually? Can I have a leadership retreat that I do virtually? What about a meeting with sales managers of my corporate client that I could do virtually and record? I think that these are important things that we need to be thinking about. How can we not only use it for a speech, a virtual presentation, but I'm really big on what I call aftercare, following up after. How do you leverage the great opportunity you just had on the platform? And by saying, would you like me to work with your sales managers, for example, to implement the ideas, techniques, and tactics that you heard me talk about in the platform? I used to say this when I spoke to corporate sales teams, and sometimes made more money on the back end than I did on the front end. And we always tape those. If a sales manager couldn't be there in person, they could watch the tape. But so look at this as an opportunity for you to create a more dynamic business than you may have had before this all happened.
Yeah, totally. Steve, changes and non-changes.
Yeah, I think for a big change that I've seen in myself, and I like to try and speak only for myself because that's concrete for me. And to me, you know, if I reflect it out to others, it's sort of an assumption. But for me, what I can say that's changed is my awareness of my own fears. You know, I live with, you know, the 7-figure mindset mentor. I mean, my wife is all about mindset. And I like to think that I've spent a lot of years working on my belief systems and mindset, and that I don't operate from a position of fear or a position of lack. But every now and then it creeps in these times. And so I've become more aware that I still am capable of falling into operating from a position of fear. And I think the realization of that has been valuable to me, because now I recognize when it's there. And so that has changed for me. And so I can deliberately now operate from a state of non-fear and not from a state of lack and all of those things, by recognizing when I have fallen into that. And it's interesting because, well, I look, down the road and see, because people are always projecting what's going to be different, if anything. Some people are saying everything will be different. Some people are saying nothing will be different. The truth is nobody knows. I mean, we simply don't know. And so it's not our timeline to manage, and it's not our outcome to determine, really. But what I do notice with myself is when I project into the future and anticipate what's going to happen post-COVID, what I've realized is that my projection is based on what I want it to be, and it's based on what my fears and limiting beliefs are. So what I need to do is understand what those fears and limiting beliefs are when they arise, and set them aside and keep going forward. So I think that's the biggest change for me, is not operating out of fear, because I haven't done that in many years, but understanding that I can still fall into that trap from time to time, and I need to have that awareness so that I can step back out of it deliberately.
Steve, that is so good. And that I feel you, and I'm with you, my friend. And I wish I lived with the mindset person too, because I think that could be helpful to have somebody right under the same roof. What I've come to value is $100 versus $1,000 versus $10,000. And I have to tell you, 6 months ago, I don't know if I would have said that I have that same, that I've become much more hypersensitive or aware to income of any denominations. And I think it's really interesting. I had to stop myself from making any fear-based decisions, because I've had this saying for a long time. It came from a really great Canadian named Peter Legge. And I think he said this to me, and he's a very smart man and has a lot of money. So I'm assuming he's right, that decisions based in fear are typically wrong. And at the beginning of all of this, I'm thinking, okay, maybe we should put the house on the market and get out from under all of this, and we have 4 mortgages. So it can get a little bit hairy sometimes and a little bit scary sometimes. And then after going through all of the stuff for it, I realized, oh, wait. That's a decision based in fear. And I just remembered I don't do those. Whoops. I had to remind myself, right? So for me, I'm totally with you there, Steve, in terms of like just shoring it up, thinking I was pretty good before, and maybe just knowing that I still had some work to do after on the other end of things. But one of the things that I don't think has, it's the same, David, but it's changed, is outreach. I think that our outreach is taking a different course. And if you outreach with exactly what you would have done 6 months ago, then you might be missing the boat. I think our outreach has to be hypersensitive. And also, maybe if you're doing something that's right on the mark, then maybe it's going to be timely. But just be aware, everybody and their dog is now offering virtual programs. And so be aware of when you're piling on. So your outreach has to be hypersensitive. And I think at this point, you're just reaching out to say, hey, are you okay? And that's probably, you're in relationship building mode versus selling mode.
Well, let's talk about this outreach thing. And this has to do with everything that each of you said. Money mindset, prosperity mindset, outreach, coming from a place of wanting to serve and wanting to help. I am seeing a lot, and I'm even seeing a lot of pushback on me because I'm selling my little brains out here. And I think we all need to be selling. It's selling in a different way, selling on a different frequency, if you will, giving more, helping more, serving more, but not selling any less. The hue and cry that I hear all over the place, including some of our speaker communities, is this is a terrible time to sell. You can't be selling. Selling is dirty. Selling is filthy. Selling is, how could you think about selling right now? It's like, well, I'm thinking about Jane's 4 mortgages right now. I'm thinking about putting on my mask and going to the grocery store right now. Yeah. So unless I show up at the grocery store with money, right? And then I also want to just throw this out for everyone's conversation. That person who is saying, stop selling. It's a terrible time to sell. It's a terrible time to sell. I wonder how their sales are. Comments, thoughts, pushback, discussion. Don't sell, stop selling. Selling is crazy right now.
Yeah,
Well,
can of worms officially opened.
Yeah.
You go, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, of course, 100% behind you on that, brother. And you said a whole lot there, because you know, I've tried paying my mortgage with good intentions, and it's just not legal currency anymore, you know. But I think I love what you said, selling on a different frequency, and it goes straight to what Jane said earlier about placing value. You know, we value $100 now, just like we valued, you know, 10,000 a few weeks ago. And we have to keep selling. We cannot operate out of that fear. And I think that if people say, look, you can't sell during this time, that is a fear-based statement. That is a statement based on fear. It's a statement based on a lack mentality, because what we're doing is we're saying that right now, I'm feeling a sense of lack and fear, and therefore everybody must be feeling that sense of lack and fear. And we're taking what we feel and we're projecting it upon those. Meanwhile, there are people in our orbit who are saying, I need what you have to help me get through this. I need what you have to help me prepare for what's after this. And if I can't get it from you, then what am I going to do? And that's what they're saying to us. So we have an obligation. This is not a choice to sell or not to sell, in my judgment. This is an obligation to make our skills and our expertise and our products and services and all the things that we do available to our market, because we are in the service business. And if we refuse to sell, we refuse to serve. And who are we to inflict that upon those who depend on what we do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's also, just quick sidebar while we're still on Steve. I know, Steve, one of your gifts and one of your talents that you're masterful at and you teach your clients and students is, how do we make an offer from the stage? How do we invite people to invest with us when they see us speak? It's the same exact mindset. Oh, I can't do that to these nice people. So wait a second. You can't be helpful. You can't accelerate them to their goals. You can't shorten their path. You can't cut their pain. You can't save them years of struggle and, you know, financial craziness. Of course you can. So if you can assertively and lovingly and clearly serve that audience by inviting them to the next step with you, it's no different now. But again, the tone of it should be different, and the context of it and the frame around it should be different. But let's hear from Lois on this too.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think there is ever a bad time to sell if you want to make a living. You know, I don't think, I think that what you said, David, made a lot of sense. I think we have to shift how we're selling right now. And, you know, reaching out and saying, what would it take to put you in this car today, is not going to work very well in this certain scenario. But I've always felt too that in an intellectual property business, which is really how I describe the business we're all in, we're in the intellectual property business, you have to give away a lot of it in order to attract people. And so make sure that you're giving away a lot of your intellectual property, as we are right now. And because, you know, I have always felt that if my giving percentage is right, I'm going to attract people to me. It's always worked that way. But you cannot just say, well, I'm out of the sales business now, or you're going to be out of the business right now.
Can I open up another can of worms in terms of the giving?
Please do.
So lowball pricing and going out and kind of giving it away. I want us to all really shore up our value and be very clear on what we're bringing to the table, and not enter in with new products that have nothing to do with our original umbrella, okay? If you're trying to meet a need that you see out in the marketplace, try to align it with what you already know and are an expert in, so that it doesn't confuse your clients long term. I think offering something that just doesn't serve your brand long term will be more of a fear-based decision. And also, back to Lois was talking about making sure that we stand tall in our pricing when we go into agreements with our clients. And my concern is that the industry is going to make a collective fear-based decision right now and try to scoop in business at very, very low rates. I was interviewing 2 speakers bureaus for the podcast the other day, and they said what clients' expectations are about a 30% break from your normal fee. So I would say if clients are expecting a break in price, then we have to acknowledge that. I don't think clients are going to expect that you're going to, if you're a $15,000 speaker, that you're going to do a virtual presentation, unless maybe you're housing some sort of technology behind you, that you're going to do it for full fee. I think we have to take clients' expectations into account, but also stand tall in our fees, and let's not give it away collectively as an industry. I think that will hurt us all.
Let me just throw out one thing, and this is counterintuitive, right? One of the things that a good marketer and a good innovator in their industry does is when everyone else is zigging, we're zagging. We are trying to elevate and escalate our product ladder and the ways that people can invest with what we do. And we are now coming up with premium and super premium offers, because you know why? People have premium problems, premium size problems, and premium super size problems. And as much as some industries are hurting, and this is true in any economy, but especially when everything is a disaster, even now, there are companies that are cashed up and they're ready to invest and they're ready to spend. And there's people and individuals who are cashed up and they just got a retirement package. 15 million of my closest friends just got very nice retirement packages and got laid off and released from the corporate world, hopefully to become some sort of entrepreneur. So this whole cut is not the only way. What we could do is figure out how can we serve, help, and in that same process, grow, and go up the vibration scale instead of going down. Just one man's opinion, like Steve. I'm just sharing from my own business what we're doing, and it's not cutting and it's not figuring out what can we do for $100. It's what can we do for mega dollars, and then keeping the other things where they are and just trying to grow and scale in a smart way by serving more and helping more. The other thing, of course, talking about scarcity mindset, is before this, unlike the 4 of us, there are people that would never dream of doing anything for free. And they're just treading water and they're hoarding their intellectual property, like Lois said. And there's like, no, I don't do anything for free. And they're very proudly saying, I'm never do anything for free. And that's why you've been stuck at that same revenue level for the past 5 years, because you're never doing anything for free strategically. Mm-hmm. So has the free strategy changed, gone up, gone down? Let's discuss kind of strategic free as opposed to just, like Jane said, giving away the store.
I think everybody's doing it for free, which diminishes it right now. I think you're right, David, that people need to do it on some level, but I just think we need to be aware that everybody's doing it, and therefore it's going to be harder and harder to differentiate.
Right. I agree with Jane. A lot more people are doing the free thing. And so I'm probably not one that to comment in this environment, because I don't speak for speaking fees anymore, because there's nobody who could pay a speaking fee high enough to replace the revenue that I generate when I monetize from the stage. Right. But I'm not speaking corporates and I'm not speaking associations. I'm speaking at events, my own events mostly, and events that are held by other people who expect this model. And in fact, I've been actually known to pay fairly substantial money to be on a stage in front of an audience that with, like Jack Canfield or one of the big names that I can actually monetize. So there is that whole model there. But where I think it gets damaging is where people, speakers will encroach on the fee-based environment when they're encroach on the corporate environment or the association environment and do it for free from a fear-based perspective in order to get the stage before the competition does. And I think that is a really dangerous thing. And sadly, it is happening. But what I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this, is, we all go to lots of conventions and events and conferences. the speakers on the stage that are, you can always tell when they're trying to be like one of those encroaching ones. They're just not very good usually. And the good speakers, they earn their fees, and they, yes, they're going to miss some gigs, but I found that the organizers typically come back and say, you know what, we want a professional, like a real professional, and they will pay for that. And I want to jump very quickly to something that Jane said earlier, which really sparked a thought in me. And she said, Jane, you were talking about don't sell a product that is not part of your umbrella just to get through this. And what occurred to me is, we see people doing that. They hoard things, right? And they try and sell them. And as professionals in our business, I think we really need to understand the difference between selling something and using something in order to separate the client from their money. And those are two completely different things. And what you mentioned there, Jane, to me is exactly that. It's, here's something that I've never sold before, but people will buy it. So I'm going to use this to separate people from their money, and I'm going to call it value when it's really not. So I think we need to have a good distinguishing mindset. We need to have the discernment to determine, are we actually providing value, or are we separating people from their money? And those are not the same thing.
I would just add that I believe that saying I am never going to speak for free is a ridiculous thought. Some associations, if a big association comes, they're in your target market. Here's one caveat that I would raise, and nobody else is being paid, which is a question to ask. And you can be in front of your target market. I think it can make great sense. Of course, I don't say not being paid. I say waive your fee, and I'm not trying to be cute about it. But I think that you need to think about it in terms of, where does it make strategic sense for me to waive my fee, realizing that this can be, for example, marketing. I also think that because of what we're coming, Jane, I think what you said was very interesting. I heard from a client of mine that a bureau wanted her to make a virtual presentation, which she's doing. And she said, what is the client's budget for this virtual presentation? And the bureau said, we're asking all of our clients to do it for 50% of their platform fee. 50%. And I think that's, I believe that lots of times we do need to negotiate. I'd rather negotiate added value than anything. But I think that's kind of outrageous. 50%. And that apparently is this rule that they've made up. Of course, who knows how solid this rule and how long it will be in effect, realizing that bureaus make a percentage of that. How long that's going to make sense, I don't know. But I think a lot of these things that sound like, well, it's got to be 50%. That's what we're doing. It doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. If anybody says that to you, you need to think, okay, we've just opened a negotiation. Mm-hmm. What else of value could you offer me if I could do that without committing? If I could do that, what else of value could you offer me that would make this commensurate with my fee? Start a conversation.
You know what I love to throw into a package is, okay, so we're going to now bump this date out into next year. Why don't we add just a little bit onto the fee and add a webinar in the meantime, or a virtual event? I guess our industry, we can't even agree on what to call these virtual events, remote speaking, whatever. Add a virtual event onto the date and do a package. I like the idea of putting together packages that include virtual live event. I think that's fun.
I have a unique strategy here to solve the problem that Lois just posed. So the meeting planner, oh, David, you're doing it at 50%. I said, well, for the program that you asked for, the way that I deliver that is I do, for the 60 minutes that you're after, it is actually 2 30-minute programs. So I'd be happy to discount the 2 30-minute programs by 50%. So it's going to be, $18 million for program 1 and $18 million for program 2. Ordinarily $36 million. I'll give it to you for the $18 million. We're we're doing 2 30-minute programs because we're discounting 50%. I can play the math game. I'm okay with that.
David,
Work
we'll
it.
go in absolutely free.
Well, that's one of my mantras. An early mentor of mine said, be expensive or be free. And she was an advertising executive, and she had her own kind of agency for a while. She said, listen, we do free work all the time. We do free work strategically. When it's time to take out the checkbook, they pay top dollar. And I will do as much free work as I can and as I think is merits that opportunity. And then when they say, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, can you do our campaign? Can you do our whatever? They get a big, huge bill. Because the moment that you're cheap, right? The moment that you're like, well, yeah, all of a sudden you just slide right down the scale.
Yeah.
And your pricing is perception. And we all know this. We all teach and preach this stuff all the time. But be expensive or be free has been just a guiding principle in my life and what I share with clients all the time.
Good one.
Let's go on to, and I want to kind of piggyback on what I think Jane first mentioned this about don't get pulled into things that are really not your thing. Where a lot of us are now at home, and people who have no interest in coaching are suddenly coaches. Mm-hmm. People who have no background in consulting suddenly have these massive consulting programs. What do you think about being anchored in your skill set, pivoting and adapting? But even some people have said to me, David, I really hate coaching. I tried coaching, but now I guess I have to get into coaching again. And can you imagine? Because we all do coaching, right? We love it. We study it. We eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Someone comes along and goes, yeah, I really hate coaching, but I guess I'll make a buck that way. Yeah. How do we know what kind of services, remote, virtual, like Jane said, whatever we're calling it now, how do we know what virtual services to get into and which ones to say, hey, you know what? That wasn't me before, and it sure isn't me now.
Yeah. Well, I think passion, you have to think about what you're going to love to do long term. And when you're looking at all of the smorgasbord of new business ideas and options that are swirling all around all of us right now, really look at, well, would I really love to do that? I had James Taylor on the podcast not too long ago, and he talked about running your own virtual summit, not unlike I think what you're doing, Steve, coming up. And I looked at how much work it was years ago when he had me on the summit. You know, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago when he first started it. And I thought, damn, that looks like a lot of work and a lot of coordination and a lot of moving parts. I do not want anything to do with that. I don't think I'm ever going to run a summit. Now, maybe I'll learn to love it, or maybe I'll change my mind on that. But really be looking at what is perfect for you and your skill set and your strengths. What are you both passionate about? What do you love to do? And just pass on the things that are not up your alley.
Yeah. You know, I couldn't really agree more, because I've been called into those summits, and I don't understand how they make them so amazing. Like James's is awesome, and there's a couple of others that are just ridiculously amazing. I would never do it. I couldn't do that. I can't see myself doing that. But what's happening with us is we have this full day live event, but it's a streamed live event as opposed to a summit, right? So, and the reason, Jane, is exactly what you were saying, is because like most of us on this call, we're speakers. I mean, we love to be in front of audiences. It's what we do. I mean, you know, we get juiced by that. And so what we're doing is we're doing this one day, full day thing where I'll be standing there with my flip chart, and I'll be doing exactly what I do in front of this camera rather than in front of an audience. You know, but here's the other side to this is I can understand this. I can understand where an opportunity pops up in a time like this, where it may not be exactly what you do and what you love to do. The opportunity arises, and so you know what? Okay, I'll do that. And so I'm doing it right now with an organization that wants me to train some of their people to do certain things. And it's not the kind of work I would normally do. Yeah. But here's the thing. I can do it. I have done it, and I don't mind it. I'm good at it, and it's worth the money. What I'm not doing is saying, okay, I do this, speaker training, sales training stuff. Let me, you want me to teach them how to fly a plane, I'll figure it out and then I'll teach it to them. Like I'm not reaching out and grabbing new stuff, which I think is kind of where you were going with that, Jane. But I can, I got to tell you, I can see where we can fall into this trap where you go, I wouldn't normally do that, but I can do that. I don't particularly like to do that, but I really would like the security of that income right now. Yeah. So I'll do that. And that's a tough thing to resist at a time like this.
Yeah. Mama got to pay the bills.
You got to pay the bills.
We get that too.
This is not unlike when, as a speaker, someone says, gee, I loved your sales program. Can you speak on time management? And you say, why, sure. And you quickly go and learn some time management techniques. I mean, you need to stick to your skill set. And I tell people, look, you're only hurting your own self when you go outside of your expertise. Much better to refer it and then try and do it yourself. It's always been my motto. It's served me well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people have to maybe pivot and flex within their skill set, right? As soon as you start reaching for things, it's like, no. I love what Barry just said. Barry asked, I didn't want to cover up Lois's face, so oh, that's a good comment. Oh, wait, that should go away. Is this a time to consider packaging a joint virtual presentation with other speakers? What a ridiculous idea. Mm-hmm. Who would do that? Who would even think of that idea? Crazy talk. No, that would never work, Barry. That's crazy. Where each of you have 30 minutes or for a 90-minute program. So that a little bit different than what we're doing here. But what are your thoughts about that? Is this now a time to, we all come at this from a spirit of generosity and we all like each other and have fun together. But should our clients start doing like 1 + 1 = 3 and 2 + 2 = 7? And, the magic chemistry, should they be getting together and packaging up their brilliance together and offering that to a client?
Well, the clients are having to reimagine what their meetings are looking like, right? So if you do some of the heavy lifting for them and say, I'm going to give you a package of 3 speakers, Jen McDonough, who runs our school, she's been collaborating with other people to bring content out to her target market, which is first responders. And I think that that's just a really amazing thing to do right now. So if you can help them reimagine their meeting, and I want to give you one more idea, by the way, on that. So Chris Young, who is now I'm not sure exactly of her title, with Heroic Productions in Minneapolis. So Chris used to be in the Speakers Bureau, and then she went into the production company, and now she's with Heroic, a production company out of Minneapolis. They pivoted quickly and got 3 sound stages going and are ready and capable of doing virtual presentations for their clients. So they work with like really big Fortune 100 companies who wouldn't have any problem dropping $10,000 or $15,000 to rent a studio in order to have one person come in. And they're doing it even right now in COVID. So they have the speaker coming in one door, a skeleton crew in another way, and it's very, very high end. I would suggest that everybody on this line find out who is your local provider for that. And that is another option now that you have for your client. Who do you have in your backyard that you can find out the pricing and say, okay, I know this studio is ready to go. They're COVID friendly and we can walk in and do it right in your own backyard. So that's just a suggestion, is to find out who can do that for you. And Chris, by the way, at Heroic Productions is putting together a list of speakers who can speak virtually. I'll give a little plug for her there. I won't give out her email address, but you can track her down through heroicproductions.com.
You can give her mine, though.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, do that.
Let's talk about buyers, because I know that part of the sales reluctance is our buyers are freaking out. Our buyers are busy. Our buyers can't be bothered right now. Our buyers their hair's on fire. They're totally distracted. They're putting out they're in emergency mode. They can't even listen to a sales pitch. They can't even listen to an offer for help. So I'm curious, in your experience, what are most corporate, because corporate and associations are kind of different, always been different, but now the crisis, I think, is different for them as well. What's a corporate buyer focused on right now versus not focused on right now? And what is an association buyer focused on right now and not focused on right now in your experience?
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm actually going to pass on this one. And the reason is because I haven't done a lot of corporate or association work in the last several years as we made this transition to some of them were called the dark side. So I've noticed a couple of things with the few corporates that I do work with. So I'll offer that very quickly. I have a couple of corporate clients. And what I found with them is that they want me to deliver exactly what they hired me to deliver, and they're paying me exactly what we've agreed upon. I'm just doing it like this now instead of in a room, and that's it. And one of those contracts is I'm training a handful of their people over a period of months. Then the original plan was to go to their national convention and sort of showcase what we trained on. And so, of course, that's not happening. So what we are doing is I'm training those teams over the next couple of months, and then we're going to do a virtual event just like this. And there'll be, I don't know, hundreds of people there, but we're going to showcase it just like this. And they're paying exactly what we agreed upon. So that's what I've noticed in the small corporate space that I have.
Well, I think people are starting to come out of the shock and awe of what's going on, right? They're figuring out how to work at home if they weren't doing that already. And they're coming out on the other side with going, okay, well, business as usual. What do we need to do? They start planning and they have to get that going. And it may not be yet, but I think it's coming soon, is that people have to continue on business. And I do have clients who are getting booked. There's people who have had bookings this week. Every Monday I do like a good news, what's the good news post on Facebook. And people are often saying, I'm working with a corporate client to book something out into the future. Some are booking fourth quarter, some are booking 2021. Yeah. And business literally did grind to a halt for a period of time, but I think they're just now coming up out of the fog. A week or 10 days ago, I heard on a meeting planner conversation, no, don't reach out to me. If you reach out to me with, hey, are you okay? That's fine. But other than that, they weren't really interested. But I think there's going to be a moment in time where they start to shift gears and go, yeah, okay, we gotta get this cooking again. We're talking about meeting in October. We need to start working on that.
I was just going to add that I agree with you both in that I think that corporations and associations are thinking, how can we accomplish what we wanted to accomplish before, maybe in a new way? How is that association meeting? Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be in person? We don't know, but there are still things that there's still a reason that they're meeting and what they want to accomplish. And so for us to be an answer to that and be able to be there in person, if they do it in person, be there virtually, if they end up doing it virtually, and help them to accomplish what they say they want to accomplish, it always makes sense. Always makes sense.
Yeah. And on top of that, one more layer is, yes, I can do virtual, but it's really, yes, I can solve your problem. Okay. So virtual is like the low bar. Everybody can do virtual. We already know that, everybody can throw their hat in that ring. So what is the problem? Can you solve that problem? That's really the yes.
I'd like to add one thing. I'm just sort of listening and scanning some of the comments, and Dean has mentioned something really interesting about how we present virtually is different than how we present live. We shouldn't be just a talking head. And I got to tell you this, I love this comment. I love it so much. Not because it blocks Lois, but because I'm going to be bold. I'm going to put this out to the audience. Okay. I could use your help. I could use your suggestions on this. We're doing this virtual event thing. I've never done it. I mean, I'm on Zoom all day long, with people, but I haven't done that kind of an event all day long. And I'm not going to be a talking head. I'm going to be standing back doing stuff. I'm looking for creative ways to keep the audience engaged beyond texting and things. So if you've got some ideas for a virtual presentation, like a virtual conference, ways that we could get the audience doing things where they could go, wow, that was so cool. I would love to hear about that. And I'll tell you what, if you send me some good comments that I can use, I will pay you back. I'll find a way to make it worth your while, because that will be of tremendous value to me. So I put it out there. And chatting it in here isn't going to help me. If you would send it to me, is it okay if I give my email address, Dave? This might be a really bad thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. Email me at steve@stevelowell.com because that would be of tremendous value, and I would appreciate that. Thank you. That's my pitch.
And by the way, in case you guys haven't noticed, of course, throughout, I've been putting up all of our websites, so everyone watching this needs to just pay us incredible amounts of money and we will help you, maybe, if we feel like it, if we're not too busy with other things like playing Atari or learning to cook or who knows.
That also happens to be my PayPal address. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there.
That email also works with PayPal, people.
Oh, Lord.
Let's talk about the future of events, because I think what Steve just said, what Dean is offering, what we've all been talking about, I'm telling people, and none of us knows, that's the beauty of giving advice in this environment. I'm telling people that the events industry will be back. The economy will be back. Our businesses will be back, but they will not be back the same. They will be back, and they will be back permanently different. Don't know what that looks like. Are we looking at, everyone's used to Zoom, right? A whole bunch of meeting organizers, conference producers, corporate training folks now are very familiar and comfortable with things happening through this screen right here, if they weren't before, but they sure are now. I would even say that office work is going to be dramatically, permanently changed in some ways. What do you see in the speaking/expert industry as some of the permanent shifts, both good and bad, that we should be getting ready for?
I think that they are still going to recognize the power of connection, that when people get together face to face, when they hug each other, when they sit next to each other and at lunch and talk through something, that those hallway conversations can be so incredibly valuable that I think that they won't go away. But I do wonder whether or not the massive, big events will change into just like smaller chunks or something like that. I'm not sure. Of course, nobody can really predict it. That was something that I heard from an economist once, is that there might be more meetings, but they might be smaller. But I think it's really anybody's guess, really.
The IT industry came out last week. Their user conferences have like 1,000 people minimum attending. And they have said that their current thinking, which is, of course, can change, is that they don't want to have these kinds of user conferences again. They want to make them more regional. They want to make them more intimate. Now, how they're going to do that, I don't think it means all virtual by any means, and it shouldn't. But I think that people are going to look at, are we accomplishing what we want to accomplish in the best way?
Yeah.
And, Jane, you had mentioned something a little while ago about offering a virtual presentation before an actual presentation. This kind of thing is going to be hot in the market now, because it's not just that we can use it, it's that the people who watch it can manage it, get their arms around it and feel comfortable watching it. So I do see that as something that has changed. And I think that that's a change for good for all of us.
Yeah. Yep.
I have a bit of a different opinion on this, and my opinion has changed since the last time we spoke, because I've been doing a lot of projecting myself, right? About what's it going to look like, and the one thing that everybody seems to agree on is that everything will be different. Maybe everything will be different. Maybe nothing will be different. We don't really know. So, but here's the thing. To me, it's about, like I said earlier, It's about not projecting what will be based on our own fears and based on our own desires. I think what we need to do from a business prudence perspective is be prepared for whatever change happens, if there is a change. So that, and I don't know, what words do you use, David? You use great words. Is it poke and prod, or pivot and puke, or
pivot and flex?
Pivot and flex. Pivot and flex. I love.
And try not to puke.
Yeah, okay, good. And try not to puke. It's good. Pivot and flex. And this is the mindset that Jane and I have, my wife Jane and I have tried to adopt, and that is, we're going to be ready for change, whatever that change is, without committing to a silo, without committing to a path. Because if we commit to a trajectory and that's not the way it happens for us, then that's not a good thing. So we're being very conscious, and we're doing a lot of different things right now. We're investing heavily in our business in things we wouldn't have before, but not because we see a specific trajectory. We want to be prepared to pivot and prod to whatever trajectory happens to be the new reality, even if it's the same one we left behind.
And can I add one more thing along that kind of philosophical line, is rather than how can I go through this, how can I grow through this? That's a line from Brooke Castillo. How can I grow through this situation? And I think we're all going to be forced to grow as a result.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, we have 4 minutes left. Interestingly, there's 4 of us. So 1 minute lightning round. Closing thoughts for today to leave our amazing viewing audience with.
Go, Steve.
Me? Okay. Closing thoughts. Folks, we're in the greatest business in the entire world, and we comprise some of the greatest people in the entire world. And I think we want to leverage this. Reach out to those who you will support. Reach out to those who will support you. Forge new relationships. Build new alliances. Build new teams, and leverage the power of the mindset of this amazing community that we're a part of, because we really are in the best business in the entire world. So leverage that to move forward. And that's all I have to say there.
If some of you are mourning loss, the loss of your calendar in April, the loss of your calendar in May, really remember that I think you need to acknowledge that and just be aware of where you are in your own mental space. But mostly, for the most part, what I've been hearing just a ton of is it's not a loss completely, it's a delay. We're taking this chunk of time and we're moving it out to this chunk of time. And it's okay to mourn it, but I think that you have to recognize that it probably is going to come back. Maybe some of it'll be lost, but it probably is going to come back. And the more and more I bring in positive and hold off news, the more I'm able to really stand a little bit taller in that mindset and that belief that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. We will get on the other side of this, and we will all be better and stronger as a result.
I think, as in some things that we've experienced before in our industry, this, as I said before, this is a journey. I think one of the things that a lot of people are learning is I need to run my business like a business. And this is one of the big lessons that I think that every time we have an interruption like this, people need to remind themselves that it isn't always going to be the gravy train. Something's going to happen, a recession, something.
Yeah.
And so run your business, make strategic decisions for your long-term growth. And I think try and be positive. I think that our clients feed off of what we're thinking in the industry. And I, am an optimist by nature, and I am an optimist right now in this time.
Nice.
Amen times 10. Well, the most appropriate advice I can give, which also came up previously, is this is a fantastic time to connect with your smart friends and ask them for help, and ask them to collaborate, and ask them to come into the sandbox with you, and ask them to lift you up and lift your audience up and lift your subscribers and fans and followers up. the more that people see us connecting and collaborating, not only with your community and not only with your fan base and with your client base and with your prospect base, but connect with each other. And let's make that a part of the permanent change that we're going to create in this brave new world. So my team of smart friends, fantastic to do this again with you. You know, depending how long this whole craziness goes on, we can make this like a monthly thing. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for all the amazing comments and all the shares and all the love. And this is the quartet that loves you back.
You bet.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.